All right, let's see if we can get this thing over the pond, maybe even into the woods. Hopefully this doesn't go through that, because then it'll go into my house, and that would not be great. 294. Whew. You guys, this thing is serious. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're reviewing something truly awesome. The SABRE Apex Prime, a fully metal Nerf sniper rifle. This thing is probably the nicest blaster I have in my collection. Definitely the most durable, and boy, does it have a buttery prime. Oh yeah, and it delivers the hits too. Let's check it out. All right, you guys, so I'm super excited to finally be able to review this blaster for you. But before we get started, I do want to say that you do have to build this blaster yourself. It does come in kit form, and that was not without its problems. And I'm going to do a whole separate video explaining all that. I will touch on it in this, but you definitely are going to want to check that out, and that will be coming out after this video at some point. Yeah, this was definitely not without its issues, and this build should not have been as difficult as it was. But nevertheless, let's start talking about this baby. All right, so keeping this blaster in frame may be challenging, but I probably will remove the barrel here soon enough just so it's not so long, because this is a 58 centimeter barrel. It is serious. But this blaster is pretty sweet because it comes with a barrel attachment point, I guess. It uses grub screws, and this you can unscrew. I have just 2 in here, but it does have room for, I think, 6 of them. So you could put 6 grub screws in there if you want. This will take you longer to get your barrel off, but you just loosen that up, and then you can pull that off, put it on another barrel, and put a barrel in. So this is the only one it comes with, though. So we will be doing a review with this barrel, but I do plan on doing a full testing video with many different barrels and many different springs. So definitely stay tuned for that. But this blaster is awesome because you can use pretty much any barrel you could possibly think of that has a 16 millimeter outer diameter. This blaster also comes with a string scar using 4 grub screws to hold it onto the barrel. It's very pretty. I love the way this looks. But this is a pretty outdated design in my opinion. It is, like I said, a string scar that you just use fishing line to run throughout one string, so you cannot change the turn or twist of the strings. You can't loosen the strings so they're not under tension when they're not in use, and you can't tighten the strings for that matter. So it's hard to get these super tight, and they're just okay. I wouldn't think that for a blaster of this caliber that you would probably use this scar barrel, because it's not going to be as effective as especially bearing scars are now, or even higher quality string scars. I mean, I guess you could purchase the SABRE bearing scar, but that's going to run you $115. So yeah, that seems a little ridiculous to me. So moving back, this blaster obviously has a Picatinny rail on the bottom to be able to prime this thing. You can use any foregrip you would like, as long as it doesn't interfere with the mag well or the mag. So this is why this is placed so far forward, because if I placed it any further back, it would interfere with this mag well and mag, and you really can't prime it fully. So you'll have to keep that in mind, but that's pretty standard for most Nerf blasters that you may encounter that issue. This thing is awesome though, because it doesn't have really any give. It means very, very little right there downward. It is steel, so it is rock solid. There is no play side to side. It is awesome. You also have a priming handle on the side for sniper status, so that is pretty sweet. Prime is so smooth, you guys. Like I said, it is 2 bearing slides that have ball bearings obviously on them, and makes it just the smoothest prime I've ever experienced. One thing I did notice though is they've changed this design slightly from the prototype, and this does not have bearings on the Prime anymore. But honestly, I think that's probably fine. I don't have any problem with it being smooth at all with the top and bottom bearings. And it allows you to take this off and swap it to the other side without having dealing with bearings and stuff. So that's just one big bolt going through there that you just unscrew, and then you can swap to the other side if you need to. While we're at it, this thing has a 100% seal, so we'll check that out. I mean, I could probably be here for a very long time, but I'm not gonna waste your time. Yeah, that thing is perfect. This pusher seals all the way into the barrel. This is a flared barrel, but like I was saying earlier, it can use any barrel. You may have smoother priming with something like this, but it should work with any barrel as long as it has a decent flare on it, which most barrels do. Also, this whole part can be removed. The Picatinny can be mounted underneath on this metal rail, and then you could put a bipod on it and just use the side prime if you want to just, you know, go prone and pretend you're a sniper. This blaster also has a full metal Picatinny top rail, which is super long, so you have lots of options to put your optics up there. I have a scope that you saw earlier that I use up there, and the thing that is kind of weird though, that it's two separate rails. So if you put an optic that's like a large scope, you may have trouble mounting that because I don't think the Picatinny rails will line up. But if you keep something on the back side or something on the front side, you should be fine. And I don't think too many people mount things in the middle of their blaster, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue, I don't think, but something to keep in mind. The magwell has openings on both sides of the blaster there to allow you to see how many darts you have left, to make sure you're loading smoothly and all the things. It's pretty cool that that's openings there. You can actually side load a dart if you want to just, you know, pretend you're a sniper and just load in one at a time without a mag. But you also could clear a jam if you occurred one of those too. So pretty cool that that's open there and gives you a lot of visibility. It also has a metal bar on top that helps the darts from popping out the top of the mag. So that's good, and also probably helps a little bit guide the darts in. But you know, it's just there for security purposes, and I think it gives it a nice look with it being gold anodized. Speaking of anodized, obviously we have the blue anodized saber here. This is also available in red, and then other parts are obviously gold, black, and silver. So it's a pretty nice looking blaster. Really love the look of this one. Very much improved over its predecessor, the M20, which looked like a brick and was not attractive at all. But this is sheet aluminum that has been bent to give it that look. Kind of gives it a rector set kind of vibe to me, but you know, I think it looks pretty nice. We also have M-LOK cut out in it, so you could put attachments on the side here or possibly on the top as long as they don't interfere with priming, but those definitely look nice. There is a bit of flex in the bottom there, but not too much. Obviously you have Sabre cut out on the backside, and I think that's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous looking blaster, you guys. I'm very, very happy with that. So this blaster is compatible with straight Talon mags. We have a 10 rounder here because we're a sniper and we like small mags, but that locks in very tightly. It is able to come out and go in with the breech closed, so that's definitely an awesome thing. But it is a very tight fitting magwell, so you're not going to gravity drop this. You do have to, it does require some force to put it in and to take out. Could be a little smoother. You could probably even lubricate the metal just to make it a little less tight, but honestly I think it's pretty nice. There is no flare to the magwell, obviously being sheet metal, but I honestly haven't had too much issue finding it, as I just did there. But I think it would be nice to possibly have some sort of add-on. I would prefer metal because this is a metal blaster that could go on the sides to give you a little bit of a flare, but I'm sure there'll be 3D printed options. I just think it'd be weird though to put 3D printed things on this blaster because there's not a 3D printed blaster, so prefer not to do that, but that is definitely an option possibly down the road. Obviously that is your mag release if you didn't see that. Pretty nice there. Silver anodized. Trigger is one thing that I find a little sloppy. Side to side, it wiggles quite a bit, and it does have some play backwards. This is built very similar to a Caliburn in the way everything catches and functions there. So you have a very similar looking trigger and sear. So if you're familiar with that, I mean, this basically is a fully metal Caliburn, more or less. So that's pretty awesome. This blaster is compatible with a lot of different grips. This is an AR grip. So if you live in the US or you're able to get, you know, real steel parts, one of those will fit. There's also metal pieces that go on the side of this that allow it to fit an airsoft grip or something like that, a gel ball grip is what I understand. Although those do probably require modification because those screws stick out past the metal plate and don't allow the grip to go on. I'm not sure why they were made that way. Those screws should recess all the way in and just be flush, but they are not. So yeah, a little modification may be required to your airsoft or gel ball grip. There is a plastic piece right here, and obviously this right here is Delrin. So those are really the only non-metal parts on this blaster, which I honestly think is a good thing because that's where your hand is resting. Obviously the grip isn't metal either, but it doesn't even come with the blaster. You do have to purchase your own grip. So definitely know that. This is something that you have to get separately. But that is nice in my opinion because it's not going to get hot or cold. Metal can get hot and cold, and that is going to be a lot more comfortable in theory. Although I would have liked it to be a little closer to this grip because my webbing of my hand likes to get into that little gap there, and that isn't the most comfortable thing. I haven't had a problem with me getting pinched or anything by the sear, but it is a little bit of a concern. But I just think it could be a little more comfortable. I'm assuming that's to allow it to work with different types of grips that may be a wider part there or whatnot, but could be a little more comfortable. So moving back to the stock, this part right here unscrews, and that's how you get access to your spring. So pretty standard, quick access to the spring, although that is in there really tight and I have a hard time removing it by hand, especially since this anodized aluminum part, this is steel, this is aluminum, is like an extension, and then this part clamps onto that and gives you your stock, obviously, but this is a very short stock. I would like it a few more inches back. I like usually a pretty short stock in my opinion compared to some people, so I feel like this is a weird length to choose. So I think that's one of the biggest downsides to me is this stock. This isn't the most comfortable either. It does do the job. It's not as terrible as I thought it was going to be, but it is pretty short. You can use mil-spec buffer tubes though, is my understanding, and that will thread into here, but you won't have a spring rest anymore, so that could be an issue. That being said, this unscrews and has threads in there. This also has threads back there, so I don't know if they're gonna be selling separately longer ones, so you can make this longer or different stock options or what, but there's a lot of thread options here to work with. I'm not sure what they're compatible with, but definitely the mil-spec one is the inside here. These I think are smaller and shorter, obviously. So I'm not sure what the plan is there, but there may be more stock options coming in the future. We will see. So the other big difference between this blaster and all the other blasters I own, it's fully metal, which makes it way heavier than any other blaster I own. This thing is just under 7 pounds with the barrel and scar attached. Maybe without those it would get closer to 6, but there's quite a bit of steel parts in this blaster, and then obviously a lot of aluminum parts. The steel is extremely heavy but very durable, so that's kind of a trade-off. You have an extremely durable blaster, but you also have a very heavy blaster. The size of it is very similar to like a Worker Harrier. It may actually be a tad bit shorter than a Worker Harrier, but it is way heavier than a Worker Harrier. So just keep that in mind when purchasing this blaster. It's not light. So I think that basically covers the overview. So let's go ahead and take this thing, put it over the chronograph, put it on the range, and see what kind of performance we're getting. All right, you guys, so we're gonna go ahead and put some of the standard Worker Gen 3 HE darts over the chronograph. Took the scar off to make sure that it's the highest performance we can get and most consistent performance. Not sure a lot of people are gonna actually use that. I will put some shots over at the end with it, just so you can get an idea how much it decreases the performance, along with a B-car that I plan to use in this kind of configuration anyways. But found out something. We have a lock nut back here that will allow us to extend the stock. So you can get it to be a little bit longer. That will give you less pre-compression on the spring, so probably will lessen performance a little bit. I'm not sure if that's what that's meant to do, I'm assuming, but no instructions were given with this blaster, and we will get into that at the end. But nevertheless, that is pretty cool, but I'm gonna go ahead and make it all the way in as possible so we get the highest performance possible. We do have the 14 kilogram spring in here, and that's what comes with the blaster. I do have an 8 and an 18, which I will do testing with that in the testing video. So definitely make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, all the things, so you know when I post that video. All right, let's go ahead and put some shots over the chronograph and see what kind of performance we're getting. Hopefully this doesn't go through that, because then it'll go into my house, and that would not be great. I'm already nervous about it. 291, pretty impressive. 285, 292, 286. That is just way too much power for such a light prime. It's insane. 279, 278, 276, 268. Why are we getting less? I don't know. 289, there we go. 264, 286, 278, 277, 269, 287. My guess is this barrel is a little bit too long, even with this massive plunger tube for a 14 kilogram spring, and that's why it's a little bit inconsistent there. But we will be testing with many other barrels, so this is gonna be pretty sweet, because I think we can get a lot of levels of performance out of this baby, and I can't wait to find out how to dial that in. Let's go ahead and throw in some bamboo darts and see how those perform. See if we can get a little more consistency out of the blaster. All right, bamboo darts loaded up, 10 shots. We'll see what we get. Should be much more consistent. 290, 286, 278, 286, 290, 289, 293, 291, 287, 294. Whew. You guys, this thing is serious. Wow, what awesome performance with a super light prime. I mean, and super smooth. Like, it is just elite. So, this thing is definitely dangerous in a sniper battle. If you're in a 300 FPS war, this is an awesome setup. And yeah, I'm really impressed with this thing. And if it wasn't obvious, this thing is rock solid, obviously. It's fully metal, it is rock solid. Like, there is no twist, no give, no nothing. So this thing should be super, super accurate. But we'll go ahead and put some shots over the chronograph with the included scar barrel to see how that drops performance. We'll do a little, a few Worker Gen 3s and then a few of the Worker Gen 3 bamboos, and just see how those compare. And then we'll put some shots over the range also. All right, I loaded up 5 of each, so we'll see how that scar barrel drops performance, if any. 264, 246, so definitely hurting performance. 254, 258, 248, so quite a bit lower, makes sense. 279, 278, 267, 276, 275. So probably a 20 FPS drop somewhere in there, I would think. But still very good performance. Not sure how the accuracy is going to be with this thing over like a bearing scar, but we'll try a bearing scar that I have that I bought for high FPS blasters like this, and just to give you an idea of what that could possibly do. Obviously every B car is going to be a little different, but just to give you guys an idea. All right, same test, but with Eli Woo's printed scar. This is a progressive scar, so the bearings actually get stronger as they go through, which is a very interesting concept. Haven't really tested this too much. I also like how it clamps onto the barrel, so it fits a lot of different size barrels. May need to tighten that up a bit because it seems a little loose, but we'll go ahead and give this a shot. All right, here we go. 276, 275, 262, 254, 260, bamboos this time, 290, 278, 289, 283, 289. So definitely with this long of a barrel, bamboos are the way to go. They're much more consistent, have less resistance through a very long barrel. But if you had a shorter barrel, may not see that much difference. But yeah, the Gen 3s just have too much resistance through a 58 centimeter barrel. That's pretty crazy, but that's pretty consistent performance. Obviously, this performed much better than their scar. Highly recommend a B car. All right, let's put some shots on the range. I'm guessing we're gonna get close to that road out there, especially if I angle it slightly. But we'll try to do a few shots flat, a few shots angled, and I'll try to verbally tell you kind of what I'm seeing, because I know it's hard to track darts on the camera, but we'll just see what happens here. Try some level shots first. Not bad, probably 20 feet short of the road. These are Worker Gen 3s to start out. All right, do a couple angled here with the Worker Gen 3s. I didn't even see that land. It might have gone over the road. One more. That's traveling pretty far, you guys. One more angle just for fun. Oh yeah, I can see it spinning too. I think that's going over the road. We'll definitely check them out at the end. Bamboo darts, a couple flat here. Couple angled. That's going so far, I probably won't even find those. Wow, that's way over the road. Yeah, we're getting well over 200 feet. Probably 200 feet, probably flat close to, but definitely over 200 feet angled. That's pretty awesome. All right, we have one more dart in here. I'm gonna try to shoot one over the pond. All right, let's see if we can get this thing over the pond, maybe even into the woods. Not into the woods, but close. It was definitely well over the pond though, pretty impressive. All right, you guys, there's 3 right here, and that's the street right there. We're probably about 20 feet, like I said. We have 2 of the normal workers and then 1 bamboo there. One more right here, so that's very consistent. 1 more bamboo, so those are all the level shots I took. So that's pretty impressive. That's the house, that's the deck. That's some good range right there. Now, where the angle ones went, I have no idea. Oh, I see one. And this, yes, they went over the street. There we are, 1, 2, and we're probably a good 25 feet past this side of the road, and probably 50 at least past where the other darts landed, if not further than that. So Gen 3, it's interesting. The ranges are very similar with the 2 types of darts, even though the FPS seem to be quite a bit better with the bamboos, but low sample size, so that it may have something to do with it. All right, so I did track down the last dart, and yes, it was a little short, obviously, of the woods there, but over the pond, so still impressive. Feel like it could have gone further. Maybe that one's a shorter one, I don't know. Maybe more testing over the pond in the next testing video, but let's go back to the couch, and I'm gonna give you my full review and final thoughts. All right, you guys, let's talk about the pros, the cons, and everything you need to know about this blaster. First off, assembling this blaster should have gone a lot smoother than it did. I have a full video on that coming, so that's gonna go in much more in depth about this, but there was definitely a lot of problems. I had trouble getting my plunger tube into the piece that holds the plunger tube in because it was super tight and seemed to be out of spec, so I had to deal with that. And I guarantee you that I will not be able to take that apart now. That is locked in there for good. So if I ever needed to disassemble this blaster, that could be difficult. I also worry about lubricating parts in there because it's such a big plunger tube. The pusher piece and all that, it's gonna be a little bit challenging, I think, to lubricate, especially the pusher part. So I'm a little worried about that when I need to do maintenance on it. So that's definitely a downside. The blaster overall is super, super high quality. This is definitely the nicest blaster I own in terms of quality. The performance is great. The accuracy is legit, like it is gonna be. The prime is super smooth. Like there's so much to love about this blaster, and the ability to set this at a lot of different FPS caps I think is super awesome also. This humongous plunger tube gives it a very high ceiling for FPS if you play in games or just want a blaster that shoots, you know, close to 400 FPS. I'm sure this one could do that if you so choose to do it, and it has a prime that actually is manageable to set it at something like that. Can't wait to test this out with the 18 kilogram spring. I think that's gonna be definitely awesome. So definitely make sure you're subscribed again to check that video out when it comes out. The weight of this blaster is what it is. I mean, it is a heavy blaster because it is fully metal. I mean, that's just the name of the game. I mean, that's just what you get with this kind of blaster. So that's gonna be a deal breaker for some, but if you don't want a heavy blaster, if you're, you know, if you're a mobile player, if you want something that's, you know, that you need to play like more a CQB kind of a role, this probably is not the blaster for you. This is more of a sit back and snipe kind of a blaster. I'm not saying it's not mobile, but it will require, you know, a little more athleticism to carry around a blaster that's a little heavier. But I think the reward is worth it, to be honest. And for, you know, playing at long ranges, I think this is still gonna be really effective, obviously. So, you know, and if you're playing at a 300 FPS cap, you're probably not playing CQB. I hope not anyway. So there's definitely a place for this blaster. It doesn't fit all the roles, but the roles it does fit are pretty awesome. And it's pretty cool that you can set this up as like a sniper if you just, you know, if you want to play a game type for accuracy purposes or something like that, or if you just want it for show. That's pretty cool that you have that ability. This is removable, so you don't have to have that on there, and I'll probably remove it for gameplay because I don't plan on just going prone and pretending I'm a sniper and trying to shoot people that way. Don't have a game type that fits that role, but nevertheless, I do think it's cool that it's set up that you can do that. The trigger is a little loose and rattly, and that is the one thing that I wish they would have tightened up a little bit better. The fact that the grips that are not real steel grips don't fit on without modification, I think is really strange and should have been really easy to fix. So I'm not sure why they didn't do that, since I know Bradley had that same issue in his review video. All you have to do is get screws that seat flush, and I think it should be fine. But yeah, that's a little disappointing. And then honestly, the stock I think is fine. It's just too short. I would have liked to see it a little longer. I know we can make it longer, but I feel like doing that may be hard to get it to lock in tightly that way. It did seem to want to come loose there a little bit, but I need to test that more. nevertheless, this does have a lot of options that you can do after the fact to give you different stock options, especially if you can use a mil-spec buffer tube. So I have one of those on order and plan on giving that a shot. Picatinny rail, like I said, is a little strange that it breaks in half there. Would have liked to see this a full piece. I think that would look a little nicer, but I'm assuming these were pre-made things and they were able to work with the blaster, so that's why they went with that, just to cut down on price. And price, like this thing is $425 US. You have to put it together yourself. That saves on the cost a little bit, but honestly, for a blaster of this quality, that is a pretty darn good price. I mean, most blasters that I would put this in the same range with, like Explorer blasters, some of the ones they sell on Black Raisin, things like that, are way more expensive. All in all, I love this thing. I think there's some things they could improve upon, and hopefully they will. Some things I think are super easy to improve upon, just getting better instructions, giving people maybe some information on what kind of maintenance they need to do with the bearings and whatnot. Pretty simple stuff like that, but all in all, this blaster is great. I don't regret my purchase at all, and I hope it holds up. The only thing I'm really concerned about, honestly, is re-lubricating the inside of it, because you cannot get that plunger tube apart. So that was the only thing I feel like is strange, that was so tight. I don't think that should have been necessary, to be honest, given that there's two things keeping it together. But stay tuned for the video on that. I'll give you all the information that you need if you have that problem, how to go about installing that, and kind of other issues I had while in putting this together and whatnot. But thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was a super long review. There was just a ton to talk about with this blaster, and I wanted to cover everything I possibly could. So appreciate it if you stayed to the end. Smash that like button, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and as always, guys, peace out.